Thank you, Jacqueline, for the introduction, and on my behalf as well, and the University of Banja Luka RETLAMI-SEE team, I would like to welcome you on this online training on research data management and open science provided by our colleagues from the Leibniz Institute for East and Southeast European Studies. Just before we start with the actual training, I will just briefly introduce you with the project itself within which we are organizing this training. It's the project called Enhancing Capacities for Quality and Impactful Research on Transformations, Labor and Migration in Southeast Europe, briefly RETLAMI-SEE. Just a brief intro, it's actually funded through a Horizon Europe program as part of the WIDERA part of the program. And it actually started in September last year, and it will last until the end of August 2027, with 4 partner institutions involved. University of Banja Luka, which is also a coordinating institution, and the department of, actually the Faculty of Political Sciences and the Department of Applied Sociology is coordinating the project with myself as the team leader, let's say it like that. And the University of Vienna, their Research Center for the Studies of Transformation, and ZRC-SAZU, from Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts, their Institute for Culture and Memory Studies, as well as already mentioned Leibniz Institute for Southeast European Southeast European Studies. So this is our team from the University of Banja Luka, but we are soon expanding the team as well with additional colleagues. So we are focusing on both the capacities of early stage researchers and early career PhDs at the University of Banja Luka, but also for research managers and administrators for whom today's session might be quite beneficial as well. So as you see, our concept is to map and strategize a bit based on what's already out there, what to do next, and how to develop our institution further in order to provide quality research that is policy relevant for transformations, labor, and migration in the region, but also to build the capacities through networking and exchange of knowledge between the University of Banja Luka and partner institution researchers, which today's session is one part of, and also to strengthen the research support, because we know that without excellent research support, we cannot have quality research conducted. And also we are doing an empirical interdisciplinary research which is focused on labor migrations from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So this is what we are aiming to achieve on both individual researchers level, institutional level, and then transposing that all to the academic and wider community level. It's basically increasing both personal and institutional level capacities and quality of research produced to kind of fit into the overall European research area in line with all the actions and policies provided both by our local and also European stakeholders. So I will now stop and thank you for the attention, because I think that the most important part is actually coming from our colleagues from the IOS now. And if you have any further questions, you can easily reach us. We will leave everything on the chat for contacting us and also for following up on the project, because there will be more webinars like this and on some other topics as well in the future. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Angela. There will also be a conference and a workshop in September on site in Banja Luka, where we will have the opportunity to meet some of the people involved for sure as well. So now we have the pleasure to listen to 2 people from our Our means iOS from the Library and Electronic Research Infrastructure Department at iOS. We will start with the head of the department, which is Tillmann Tegeler. I will briefly introduce him. He has studied Slavistics and East and Southeast European history, both in Munich and in Moscow. And already for about 25 years, Tillmann Tegeler has been working at the library of the predecessor institutes of iOS. Then in 2007, he became head of the libraries, and at iOS, he has been head of the Library and Electronic Research Infrastructure Department since 2012 already. Tillmann will start, and then afterwards, he will start with introducing you to open science support services. And then Hans Bauer will introduce you to open access services, especially at libraries and with examples from the iOS. And Hans Bauer also studied Slavistics and the history of East and Southeast Europe, but he studied it in Regensburg, Warsaw, and Munich. He then worked in the field of public history and the library sector for several years. And since more than about 10 years now, Hans is part of the iOS library department, where he was responsible for the Ostdoc and the GeoPort Ost projects, on which we will talk today as well. So he focuses on digital collections, on open access, open science, and on the Polonica. After Hans, Tillmann will speak about research, data management, and the examples provided by EOS, and I give the floor now to Tillmann Tegeler.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacqueline. I will start our presentation. So here we are. So, oops, that's not the beginning. So this is our first slide. I hope you all can see the presentation modus. Yes, thank you very much also to Angela for introducing us and the project. Dobar dan. We are really glad to have the opportunity to present to you our efforts regarding research, data management, and open science. And this is our agenda for today. As Jacqueline already mentioned, we will start with open science. I will give you a definition and will present what we will talk about and what we won't talk about today. And then Hans will focus on open access, especially the role of libraries, and then it will become colorful regarding explaining open access and different licenses, how to share publications. And after that, I will again give you an definition for open research data. And then I will go into the hard work of research data management, which a core working thing is the data management plan. And after that, I will present some repositories where you will find either research data or information about how to share your data. In the presentation, in the PowerPoint presentation, we have some links, and when we will share the presentation, of course, afterwards, and then you can also follow the links, so you don't have to, make a note on the links. Okay, so let's start with open science. Well, open science is not just an idea which some people, some scholars in Europe or somewhere else are thinking about. but it's really a thing the UNESCO, for example, thinks about. So after a long process in 2021, so 4 years ago, the recommendations on open science were published by the UNESCO, and I will give you now an overview. What does it mean for the UNESCO, and not only for the UNESCO, but also for us as scholars in academia, how to deal with open science. So here's a definition. As I already told you, we will share this slides so you can read it afterwards. But the core thing is the aim is to share or to share research results in a multilingual way for the reuse in all the different disciplines. So there are many points in this definition. That means that every research output should be shared. It doesn't matter in which language it is published, and it doesn't matter in which discipline it is published. It should be shared with the community. And of course, as we are for example, or mainly in Europe, we are financed by the public. This is, of course, a thing we give back to society, that we share our research results. Although nowadays most of the language, the research is published in English, open science gives us the opportunity to share also scientific knowledge in different languages, make them available, and with, for example, help of artificial intelligence, perhaps we can in the future understand also research in languages we do not speak and do not know. And of course, there is a communication included in open science with the society, with actors outside academia. So that is the whole research process should include all other groups like marginalized people or indigenous, but I will focus on this afterwards. Okay, so the definition of open science, or the recommendations of the UNESCO regarding open science has 4 main areas, and we will focus on 2 of them, but I will explain all of them to you. So the first one is the open scientific knowledge, and this means that our research should be described and should have a license so that everyone can find it and reuse it for his own work. And everyone means really everyone. It doesn't matter where he's coming or she's coming from, what religion, what race, whatever they are from. They should use and reuse, especially the produced research results according to this definition or the recommendations of the UNESCO. We will come to this point afterwards when we explain open access and research data management, and also we will explain the open science infrastructures, which are platforms for sharing data, and these should serve especially the needs of all the people they are using it. Of course, especially for researchers, but also for people, like I already mentioned, outside the academia. And this could be a virtual or a physical, as is described here. That means, of course, open science results are shared via the internet, but we should also open other scientific collections to all people interested in. A point we will not focus within this presentation, but I will shortly or briefly say something about it, is the open engagement of societal actors. That means that the society should be included in research, like we do it already by crowdsourcing projects. We in our library had different ones, collecting geodata with the help of people from outside the academia, but also crowdfunding means that there is an engagement of societal actors, but also scientific volunteering and citizen science belongs to this field of open science. Finally, the fourth area of the open science is the dialogue with other knowledge systems especially. And this means not only with computational systems, but with knowledge systems within other societies, especially with indigenous or marginalized indigenous people or marginalized scholars, and also the communities in your environment. Okay, so the core values and the guiding principles are listed here. That means that all these efforts I described based on the values like quality and integrity, collective benefit, equity and fairness, and diversity and inclusiveness. So these are the values, and they also have principle that means transparency, for example, or equality, but also the responsibility for the open systems and the collaboration and participation of other people. That should result in flexibility and finally in sustainability. So the whole idea of open science is not limited to just the research process itself, but also includes the things after ending the research and make the results sustainable. So these are the recommendations of the UNESCO, but what does it mean for us as researchers or for us as institutions? So the idea is that everyone in academia, every player, every actor, doesn't matter if it's an individual or a collective actor, should think about this idea of open science and in the best way should follow the guidelines of this idea. So there in some countries, there are initiatives, not only in countries, of course, at the European Union level, but there are countries around Europe that have a open science policy. That means they say their researchers, you should follow these guidelines. Well, in Germany, we don't have a federal policy on open science because we are a federal system, which means that we have different players. So in Germany, it's more common that institutions or societies, academic societies, give themselves a open science policy. We're at the IOS. We have an open science policy since last year. So tomorrow it will celebrate its first birthday. But before we publicate this open science policy, we had a long process. We had different policies before this. First of all, we had an open access policy that gave recommendations to our researchers how to make their research results. How they should publicate their research results. And after that, we had an policy on research data, and this was merged together in this open science policy. If you're interested, you can have a look at these links afterwards, but when you search the internet, of course, you find many open science policies of different actors, institutional or also from countries. The European Union, of course, supports the open science policies very strong, and they're different different programs where you can apply to be supported with money to introduce open science policy in your institution. And of course, many people also think about where to publish, for example, research data or something like that, so that are also infrastructures are developed with the support of the European Union. Here I listed only some initiatives. So we have the EOSC. This is the European Open Science Cloud. This is the idea that all the data-driven research output is hosted in one cloud. And another idea is are the national initiatives for open science in Europe. In Germany, we have the so-called NFDI. So this is the National Research Data Infrastructure. This is based on or developed for the different disciplines. So I don't know how many we have at the moment, but we already have a lot fields where we develop this national research data infrastructure. And finally, there's Open Air. This is a national open access desk, this is a European initiative which supports a national open access desk. And the one for Bosnia and Herzegovina is at your university, I learned, so at the University of Banja Luka. So now I will give the word to Hans. So Hans, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello. Um, Thank you for this opportunity to present something about open access. A short disclaimer, Jacqueline. I think I won't focus on solutions we developed here at iOS for supporting uh, open access or open science activities because these solutions function on an institutional level. Maybe they can serve afterwards in the discussion as a case study. Um, uh, Yes, as Tillmann has just presented, open science includes the entire research cycle, from the initial research, the development of your research design, the collection of your sources, uh, to the transparent evaluation, and finally the review of your research results. Why is it worth collaborating with libraries in this field? Why look for partners outside of your own scientific community? Maybe, but of course, it's my view as a librarian, libraries are the natural partners of researchers, of the academia. At first, libraries collect and preserve a large part of the sources and the literature you need. And your research probably also will flow into libraries. The second, libraries have always fostered a sharing culture. They make information accessible and reusable, also part of the open science principles. And libraries function within the academic system. They work cooperatively, not only in specialized ways, but also, you all know, for example, interlibrary loan, also by developing digital collections that can be shared between libraries and between researchers. And last but not least, you are probably familiar with Derek de Solla Price's study Little Science, Big Science. De Solla Price calculates in this study that scholarly production has doubled every 15 years since the 17th century. More recent studies suggest that the world's knowledge doubles every 5 to 12 years. And this rate is accelerating. And libraries have the tools that guarantee that your work doesn't disappear in this flood of knowledge and only appear in Google by chance. And I think this is the most important point. Libraries provide metadata, schemes, and authority files that can adequately describe your work and make it findable. And not only that, metadata from libraries can be used to link and to contextualize information with other information. And now the next slide, please. And so it's no coincidence that open science originated from a library initiative, or yeah, partly. Because the idea of open access emerged in the 1990s under the pressure from rising prices from scientific publications and stagnating of shrinking library budgets. So an international open access movement emerged at the beginnings of the 1990s. The central demand of this movement is that scientific publications as result of publicly funded research should be made available to this public free of charge. So there are several declarations. The Budapest Open Access Declaration at first in 2001, and now the most actual is the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to Knowledge in the Sciences and Humanities. This declaration defines open access as a comprehensive source of human knowledge and cultural heritage that has been approved by the scientific community. And in order to realize the vision of a global and accessible representation of knowledge, the future web has to be sustainable, interactive, and transparent. Content and software tools must be openly accessible and compatible. Yes, that's a very idealistic axis, but we are working on this, and it's crucial that in this definition, open access means not only access by reading, for example, your research results, but also means processing or editing, working with this knowledge, with this information. Yeah, the next slide, please. Why open access? I think the results, as mentioned, of publicly funded research should be publicly accessible. I think that's an important point. We are all paid or most of us are paid by universities, by publicly funded research institutions. And why should we give away our publicly sponsored work to commercial exploration? The second argument is that digital publishing is not as expensive as the traditional way of publishing. Another argument, and this is maybe interesting for researchers in special, open access publications increase the visibility of your research, the so-called citation advantage. They create transparency, and of course, that's also very important. You don't give away the rights to use your own works. Open access should facilitate that you, after you have published your results, that you can further develop, further correct this. Yeah, the next one. And there are several models of open access publishing. The first one is the green one. The green road to open access publishing is known maybe also as self-archiving or open access green. This refers to the secondary publication of documents already published by a publisher. It means that you, after you have published your results, that you could publish it again as a preprint or so-called postprint in other repositories. for example, in institutional or disciplinary open access repositories. In some cases, it also understood to mean making such works available on your own website. The most official way is the gold open access. It refers to the first publication of academic works as articles in open access journals, or maybe also as open access monographs. These texts usually undergo the same quality assurance process as closed access works, usually in the form of a peer review or editorial review. As a rule, a publication contract is concluded with the publisher, which determines which rights of use the authors grant the publisher. And the gold open access usually is connected also with so-called article processing charges. It means you as a researcher has to pay for being published. And the maybe best way or is the diamond open access. If an open access publication is managed entirely without APC's article processing charges, that means it is free of charge for both readers and publishers. This special case is called diamond open access. In addition, diamond open access journals often take place within a community-led, non-commercial background. The next, please. Yeah, a brief discussion maybe. It can be stated that publishers at the moment developed open access as a really good business model. They no longer earn money from subscription prices for the journals, but also from article processing charges from authors. And these article processing charges, it depends from journal to journal, can be very, very high. The problems are that there are journals that no longer take the review process so seriously in order to generate as many article processing charges as possible. Another problem is there are journals that are so prestigious in their communities that the APCs are incredibly high. This means the financial background rather than excellence is the deciding factor for publication. Yeah, and the next one, please. What to do now? How to publish open access? There are a lot of guides how to choose, how to find an open access journal which is fitting to your research, to your subject. Compare these registries. There are also tools to find an open access journal. And please use these tools or guides. We linked them afterwards in the presentation because be careful, there are some predatory journals which guarantee, for example, a publication. You have to pay for it. But the quality assurance isn't the same as in as needed. Also very important is you can use your secondary publication rights. The most publishers, also the commercial publishers, have policies that at least allow you to publish your preprint, your manuscript version of your research after a certain period of time. And this increases the visibility. Um, and of course, you can contact your publishers, contact them, ask them whether you can choose freely the license for publishing your research. And of course, you'll find partners at your library, I think. As Tillmann mentioned, the open air contact point, for example, in Banja Luka. Tillmann will, I think, continue to explain that open up your research doesn't just start with the publication of your research results, but even earlier with open data.
Yes, thank you, Hans. Now I try to, proceed. Yeah, thank you very much. This is absolutely right. I now will refer to open data, and this is some kind of new field. It's also, of course, a publication, but often it's not a textual publication as we know it from books or journals, but this is data. But it could be all types of data. That means digital or analog, raw or processed. So the new thing is that these data are to be described to make them findable and for the reuse of these data. They, of course, have different formats. We have geodata, we have other data calculation formats, and so on. And for us as libraries, a new task is to support the researchers by publishing their data and create metadata to describe them. So this is a new task for us as libraries. This is the definition of the UNESCO. I explained it somehow, and I will go in much more in detail by thinking about what are research or what could research data be, especially in humanities and the social sciences. This slide is taken from a project we were involved in. It was called OSData. It was a project of different institutions in Germany which wanted to develop a repository for research data in the East and Southeast European studies. So we were thinking about what can research data be, and you see it here. It can be audiovisual data. It also transcribes, especially in the historical research. You have transcripts from the archives, but also annotations, excerpts can be research data. So everything that is collected during the research process or is produced by the researcher, that should be documented with the goal to make the research transparent and finally also reusable. So when we look how to process research data in a management, we have to look at the life cycle of research itself. So as it's described here, you start your research, have your hypothesis, and then you collect the data, analyze them, and afterwards, in the best way, it is published to be reused. And the point from the collection to the publication is a process where you should use tools of research data management, because this guarantees you that you follow the FAIR principles. And FAIR is just an abbreviation for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So these are the guidelines also described by UNESCO, by the European Union. Everyone stresses these FAIR principles to deal with data. And for achieving these goals, the findability, the accessibility, operability, and the reusability, you have to create metadata. You have to describe your data very, very good and deep so that they could be findable or reusable, that someone who is dealing with your data understands what you have done when you collected these data. Of course, you should make them accessible by sharing them. To make them interoperable, the best way are open formats, not proprietary formats, that someone can use them without a barrier. And finally, they should be open licensed so that someone can deal with them. There are different ideas of licenses, but they're at the moment very open licenses to share these research data. And all of them, you see it in the circle, is a process where you should be accompanied by your library, which should support your research data management. Well, the basic of research data management is a data management plan. So in the mentioned project OSData, we were thinking about what are the real main tasks for having research data management, and we came to the conclusion that we need the general information on the research project at all. We should describe the content of the research data. We should also describe how we handled the research data during our research process. And of course, we should think about the legal and ethical aspects, especially in social sciences, in the humanities. You often have ethical aspects to think about, of course, also legal, like a personal right or data protection rights and so on. And but the main goal should be the publication of research data, and finally, yes, at the end, you should think about what is not really answered in your data management plan, what you should think again about at the end of your project. And all these follows the principles of the FAIR, like I already mentioned, of the FAIR principles. At the IOS, my institute, we started to build a repository on research data where our researchers can publish their data. And to make these data findable and also interoperable, we had to think about what should the description of the data like. So we worked very hard on this metadata scheme. So we were thinking about that everything has to have a title. So this is not self-explaining, because if you have a transcript of something, you don't have a title. So you have to think about a title. You should give them your data an abstract, and the people who worked with this during the research process should also be described by identity numbers. You might know the ORCID number, so this is also a part that you have to think about. And then many other information should be included in the description, like I already mentioned, the legal aspects. But then what we also concentrated on in our creation of the metadata scheme is the description of the content. So not only what are the people who worked with the data, what is the title, and when was it published? No, we thought we should give more information about the content, like we are at the IOS, we are an area studies institution, so we of course have this geographical focus. So we give different use different description systems to describe the region or the area that is included in this data, and also of course other vocabularies, classifications we ask the researchers to use to make all this data better findable. And at the end you see of course there are administrative metadata, but also relations perhaps to other metadata or to other publications, like your article in a journal or something like that. Our repository is called Lambda, but I think I have a link to it at the end. Okay, so again, metadata is the core element of describing and finally finding data. So here I have give you some links. You might think about where to publish your data. So if your institution has no repository, or it doesn't fit anyhow to this repository, you can search re3data.org. This is just a catalog of hundreds of data repositories. So that by filtering it, the catalog, you can find a repository that fits for data. And of course, we also have special academic search engines, like the base search that is run here in Germany, where you can find open data. And for example, our data published in the Lambda repository are also findable in the base search engine. The repositories I already said or already mentioned. Lambda is an institutional repository, so most of the university have repositories. A smaller institution don't have them because, of course, it means also hard work on it, and they don't have the people for it. But there are also disciplinary, like the OSData I already mentioned, and these are examples from Germany. But I'm sure that there are also similar repositories in your country. And there's a comprehensive one which is run by a big central library, but it doesn't. You can find data for every discipline in this Datorium repository. So, well, this is the end of our presentation. Hans already said that we have some links in for deeper information for you. So please feel free when we have shared the slides to follow these links. They should help you somehow to organize your digital research and your digital publications. It doesn't matter if it's a textual research result or it's a data research result. So here we are. Our names are linked with our email address, and we thank you very much. Hvala. This is the end of our presentation.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tillmann and Hans, also for keeping an eye on the time. It was very general insights from a rather institutional perspective, and I hope that we can now, during the Q&A, also answer some practical questions from a user's perspective. I would like to ask you to either raise your hands digitally or write to all of us in the chat. And I give you some time to think about things you would like to clarify for your research by having a question on my own at the very beginning. And I was thinking about the quality check or the reliability of research data. As you know, we come across now, especially as people who are teaching at universities, that students are generating or providing bibliographies generated by artificial intelligence. So people provide bibliographies with books that do not exist at all. So how do we guarantee that research data, or how as a system you have presented, is guaranteeing that there's a quality check behind it, or that the data offered is a reliable data?
Yeah, thank you, Jacqueline, for this question, which is very difficult to answer. It's not so difficult. So what we have is that when data are published in our repository, we give them for a review to other scholars, so that they should, like, also when you want to publish an article, you also have these reviews by other scholars. So this, I think, is the best way. And of course, the good data governance should include good scholarly practices, and which is of course difficult, but by reviewing it, I think there should be a kind of quality control.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Thank you.
Maybe a short comment. The newest trend is to answer this development also by AI. For example, to check bibliographies or something like that with new models trained by library data, for example, to check whether there is a real life publication or is it only a hallucination from ChatGPT?
Yeah, okay, that sounds practical and feasible. But then the next question would be in terms of ethics. So this is something where the researcher has gone through a process, and the persons, for example, with interviews, people who have agreed to provide interviews, they have agreed to provide information to this specific researcher. But then in terms of making it even anonymously available for a wider audience, I think it's another step where you would need the agreement of the person whom you interviewed again. And this is usually not feasible after the research has come to an end. So I think most of the interviews I have conducted during my PhD are not suitable for research data, for open research data afterwards.
Yeah, this is right. But in the future, this should be thought about before starting your research. So this is also part of the this should be research data, the management plan. So think about what could happen in the future, and this is really a step. And an important step before starting collecting the data.
Yeah, okay, I think. Okay, I have seen Angela and then Dushka who raised their hands. Please, Angela, continue.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot both to Tillmann and Hans for the presentations. Since I've been dealing with the open science and open access for quite a while here at the University of Banja Luka on some other projects as well and so on, one thing that kind of strikes me the most is the level of engagement of researchers actually into really working with the data and providing the data then afterwards for the repository. Because I mean, I'm not sure whether it's only the case here because researchers are not that well acquainted with the with all the aspects of how to prepare your data for depositing it into the repository. So how do you kind of approach to the researchers and what kind of support do you provide? Because it takes a lot of work and effort to really organize the data systematically in order for it to be reusable again, covering all the aspects that you mentioned that you cover with Lambda, with all the metadata. I mean, so how the support is actually provided and who does it? Is it the librarians or do you have a data stewards or whatever? So that's actually one question. And the second question is, are you dealing only with the quantitative or do you also deal with qualitative data, which then makes it, again, additional effort for researchers, especially in terms of what Jacqueline just mentioned, ethical aspects of the qualitative data provision in any open access format because of the protection of the respondents, for example, depending on the sensitivity of data and so on. So just kind of how does it work in practice at your institution?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, because it gives me the opportunity to say that Hans and me are not the ones who are dealing with these fields. There are two other people One is now at parental leave, and the other one is not hired yet. He will start in September. So Hans and me are not the specialists, but we have created a so-called open science office at the IOS. These are two people. One is more concentrated on open access, like presented by Hans, and the other one is a research data specialist who should give the support to researchers. And yeah, these are two people, and the office will again start work in September. So Hans and me not are really specialized in this kind of support work in here at the Institute regarding research data. So this is the one point. But on the other hand, of course, it's very, very hard business to get the people to make the people describing the data, because they say hey, it's not that worth. But I think we have. On the one hand, we have, of course, this institutional policy, which says you should, and so on. And on the other hand, we have many projects, these funded by other institutions or by the state or someone else, and they also say that you have to publish your data. So. But then, on the other hand, we are dealing with qualitative and quantitative data. Of course, you have all these legal questions, the ethical aspects to think about. Yeah, that's it. Of course, you in former times you also had these questions to raise in your research when you conducted interviews and so on. But of course now. In the digital age, it's perhaps a little bit more complex.
Hans, would you like to add something?
I think, yes, it's a very dynamic development concerning research data at the moment. And I think we can see that the credits for publishing research data as open data are increasing. So it's also for you as researchers, or there is a perspective that opening up your data, describing the base of your research will be in will be earn more credits in the not far future times. Yeah.
Okay. Angela just wrote in the chat that there is in Bosnia, there is a data archive for social sciences, but it's underutilized, both in terms of depositors and end users. And this is probably the case with many data archives because it's such a time-consuming thing. Just I wanted to add, as from the perspective of somebody employed now at the IOS, that we were approached by the library department and asked how could the new Open Science Office support us, and especially when we are planning new projects, or when we have concluded and ended a project, we could make use of those people who are now employed at IOS, but we don't have the experience yet. So it's a really recent development. The next one is Dushka on our list.
Hi. Well, I would like to firstly thank Tillmann and Hans for this very thorough and very detailed presentation. It was very useful to listen about this important data. I personally think that the open access and open science concept is tremendously important for the future of the scientific research. I would also like to second the concerns that Jacqueline and Angela already mentioned regarding the especially qualitative research data. Well, for example, I've conducted some research with minors, qualitative research, and that paper was published this very morning, and that data is, well, quite sensitive in terms of the approval of the minors' parents and etc. And also it's a very sensitive and has to be really carefully published, even in the paper, especially when giving access to the raw data. The second thing I would like to sort of tackle some possible future ideas for trainings regarding the data. It's about how to analyze and how to access publicly available data, for example, from Eurostat, from UNESCO, from UNICEF, and so on. There is a lot of very valuable data, but it's not always very user friendly. It's not always easy to go through that forest of various data, even in your very specific field. But perhaps it could be very useful. Well, for a context, I'm a PhD student at the probably at the end of my PhD road, and it could be really useful if some sort of training for how to analyze that data was available for us at the beginning of the PhD program. Thank you a lot. Thanks once again for this presentation and for this training.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, because the second thing you mentioned was really a request by our research departments that, yeah, the one who is dealing, so we hired him just, well, the contract is not signed yet, but I hope he will come in September, that this person also should support the researchers by finding data, so that he should have an overview of what is published where. Of course, this is not so easy. We are also an interdisciplinary institute. We have historians, political scientists, and economists here at the IOS. So it's a big challenge for this person. But I think this is a request more often articulated nowadays. And the other point regarding sensitive data, of course, if there is a legal argument against publishing it, it must not be published. But what I think, well, it's not well, not everyone agrees with this, but I think sometimes it's also worth it to publish just the metadata, so that someone finds that there was also research going on this special subject, so that can contact the person, and then they can talk about it. Perhaps some things are can be shared and others not, and so I would always say, describe your data. It doesn't matter if they will be published fully at the end of the project, but it could help other scholars, and perhaps also you to get in contact with people working on the same subject.
Okay, thanks a lot. Tamar, please.
Thank you. Thanks for this interesting workshop. So my question goes to the direction of the kind of typology of the data, what we mean behind the data. And of course, like that, according to disciplines and field of work, the data also vary, right? I mean, for historians, we have these archival materials as a data, oral histories as a data, even the persons and biographies and our interlocutors and the persons like who are like giving us different kind of information as a data, right? This is, I mean, how do you define the data? This would be my question. What could be considered the data and what can be considered as a data? And I mean, of course, like, for example, the statistical kind of informations which you collect in different kind of secondary materials. Are these also the data? I mean, this is a question how we somehow tip down what could be considered as data and how to handle it.
Yeah, again, a big question, because this is really discussed in infrastructures and also of course in the disciplines. It's not so easy like in the sciences for us in the humanities and the social sciences what data are. So everyone has to define it itself, and this should be also somehow described in the policy of your institution. So, if you, Tamar, have a look at the policy of the IIS, you will find some description, some definitions. But I also have to say, of course. For example, when I go to traditional historians and say your transcript from this book is research data, they would say no, that's just my transcript or my excerpt from a book. But of course, you can also digitize. It's not necessary, but that is an idea of it, and that could finally also help to explain your research process, because all the data management and the dealing with it should also make your research process transparent. So I can't give you a definition of what a research data is, but what it could be for some and for others not. So there should be. I would recommend a definition by the institution you are paid by, but of course there's a discussion going on, and especially at the humanities and social sciences. I don't know if Hans has a final definition of research data. No.
Yes, of course, but I have forgotten. No. I think research data is all the data that your research is based on, analog, digital, and of course, in our case, these research data should be in a digitized form, guarantee the transparency of your research, and maybe give an opportunity to be processed afterwards. But yeah, I remember that a colleague answered when we asked, do you have some research data in your field of research? She is an historian. She told, oh, you'll find my research data in the endnotes of my publication. That's also maybe an a definition or
Yeah, but that brings me back to a question I had at the beginning as well, which I didn't raise, about the timing of the publication of research data. But what you have described now is something which where research data will be published after a project has come to an end, where the result is published, and then somehow the process of coming to that result is made publicly available and reusable, right? So I was just thinking that whether there is the demand or the opportunity or even the risk to publish research data already during the research, where you, for example, you know that you have gathered a lot of data and you will just use a part of it for the publication, and then you have a part which is not processed. Would you recommend that, or would you rather say you shouldn't do that because you have not used it further?
Yeah, well, this is a good question because as I remember from other disciplines like the economists, there is no sharing idea or no idea of sharing the data. So they would never share data before the end of the process, and afterwards either they won't share them because perhaps they need them again and ask other questions to the data and so on. So if you would share data before publishing your research results, so that I would say that would be great of you, but this is very, very uncommon because the idea of sharing is not so widespread in many disciplines. Well, in the social sciences and humanities.
Okay. And another question, can any researcher dealing with Eastern and Southeastern Europe approach the Open Science Office at IOS and ask questions, or is it just for the researchers employed or the people employed at the IOS? How does that work?
Yeah, at the moment it's for the people employed. Well, I don't, but well, of course, if there would come someone from outside, he would also be get some information and support by our people, I think, because that would be, of course, a nice situation that someone's coming from outside, but at the moment, I think there should be more efforts in getting our people to use research data management and so on, and yeah, I don't see this at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought in terms of thinking of a library which is publicly accessible for anybody who is interested in the region, the Open Science Officer should be reachable and responsible for anybody responsible or interested in that region. But I understand that it's a management question and also a resource question, and the IOS will start with its researchers at the beginning, of